the blockbuster trade at the top of the draft between the Carolina Panthers and the Chicago Bears. The Panthers going up from pick 9 all the way to number 1 overall to presumably select their quarterback of the future. And it was a hefty haul that they had to pay Chicago. They gave up pick number 9, pick 61 in the second round, a first round pick in 2024, a second round pick next year, or rather 2025, and then wide receiver DJ Moore. And you hinted at it, Michael. You think the player was the biggest part of this deal and why Chicago went all the way down to 9 with Carolina?
Well, I think there's two factors, right? I think the Carter news coming out of Georgia, I think that kind of allowed them, the Bears, to think about going as far down as 9. Okay, so I think that had something to do with it. I think the second part was DJ Moore. You're going to get a receiver who the Panthers just signed to a contract. So you don't have to worry about redoing this guy's contract. You got him signed. He's on your team. So you got him on, you know what his cap number is, and you're just paying paragraph 5. You don't have to give him a signing bonus. So that's a huge deal. And he's a good player. Is he a number 1 receiver? No, but he's a really good receiver. You know, he's a really good receiver. So you get a really good receiver, and you get the compensation, and now you're going back to 9, and you're saying, okay, it's not really where I wanted to be, but why not? I'm here, and I'll probably get a good defensive player. Maybe I'll get an offensive lineman. I don't know. So I think you kind of handled that. I thought it was a really good deal for the Bears, assuming, and this is a big assumption, A, they hit the picks. Because remember, we're going to figure out this trade. We're going to say, okay, the Panthers take Bryce Young, and that's what I hear. I hear it's Bryce Young. Now, could it be C.J. Stroud? The betting market thinks so. I think there's kind of a little bit of a back and forth. I think it's Bryce Young, but I think it's back and forth. And so if it's Bryce Young, then we're going to go Bryce Young versus the player they picked, and then we'll analyze the trade. And if Young's great and you hit with him, and he's the outlier at 5'10", 200 pounds or 195 pounds once he gets, then you say, great. Look, I went back, I watched Bryce Young this past week when I had free time in the hotel room on the road. I mean, look, the guy is dynamic. There's no denying his football talent. He was born to play the position. He's got unique skills in terms of instinct. His arm's stronger than Tua's. He's got great ball placement. He's got a tremendous feel. He's got that Jason Bourne-like ability to see everything. When I say Jason Bourne, I'm talking about the scene when he comes into the cafe and he's sitting there and he notices everything that happened. The guy's left-handed. The guy's got a gun. This guy can hold him. Like, Young's got that skill. But, you worry about, can he hold up? Can he hold up? Can he handle it? Like people say batted balls down. Well, I think Joe Burrow was like 3rd in the league in batted balls down. Justin Herbert was like 3rd or 4th, 2nd in the league in batted balls down this year. Like, so sometimes when one thing about Bryce Young, he has that Drew Brees overhand delivery. But think about where we are with the league. Think about where we are with the league today. When Drew Brees came out, he did everything at Perdon't that you could do as a player, right? He did it all. He was upset, he was small. And he went, 32nd in the draft. He went at the top of the second. John Butler, the former general manager of the Chargers, God rest his soul, he picked Tomlinson and Breeze in exchange for Michael Vick. Okay, so he made a great deal there. Yeah, got a great deal there. Got 2 basically Hall of Famers in exchange for Michael Vick, who's a really good player, but probably not going to be a Hall of Famer. So anyway, that kind of like, and now we're talking about Bryce Young being the first pick overall. So what my point is, look how the league has dramatically changed through that. But I think Carolina, after I said DJ Moore was the clincher, I think the second part of it is that the Panthers want a quarterback on a rookie contract. I think the Panthers, instead of going after Lamar, and I think that's part of the issue with Lamar, is people don't want to spend, their team's not good enough to go spend all this money for the quarterback and have no money left to build your team around. That's the problem, right? So I think they wanted a quarterback on a rookie deal. Now they got to hit with the pick.
The aggregators are going to really love this segment here, Michael, because you're pivoting far from what the betting market is indicating right now, because I'm looking at our show sponsor, DraftKings. C.J. Stroud is minus 300, and that is implying a 75% chance that he will be the first overall pick we believe that it's going to be Carolina that makes that selection. I know there's been some rumblings. I don't know how much credence you put into it that they maybe trade down. That doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me, but who knows? Crazier things have happened. But CJ Stroud was the guy that the betting market shifted towards once Carolina made that trade, because everybody said, oh, Panthers like Stroud. They're now picking one. Let's make Stroud the favorite. You think, though, based on the guys that you've been talking to around the league and the gals that you've been talking to, that this could be Bryce Young, who right now is plus 235, the second choice to be first overall. You think that Young, it's more neck and neck, or would you even go as far as saying that you think Young is probably like 52, 53% to go number one overall?
I would go 60-40 Young. It's going to be Young. I think, to me, you don't make this trade if you don't know who you're going up for. Like there's never, again, this is false duality. It's never A or B. Mm-hmm. When I was a young scout in Cleveland, we had this personnel director, and I was doing pro work at the time, but he had a calculator next to him, and Femi gave this guy a 62, and I gave this guy a 56. So, all right, so we'll make him a 5'8". No, the one thing he's not is a 5'8". Like, he's either a 62 or he's a 56, but he ain't a 5'8". Like, you can't split the difference, right? Like, so you can't say, well, Stroud and Bryce Young are both 7-0 players. You can't say that. Like, there has to be a difference, but no player is exactly the same grade. One's better than the other. So when you trade it up, you're saying, okay, especially if you got to 1. I mean, you probably could have Monty Osendorf would have given you 3. I'm sure of it. Mm-hmm. I'm sure he would have given you a 3 for this haul to go to 9. So there's a reason you went to 1. There's a reason you went to 1. And the Bears were anxious to trade. I said that last week. I knew they were going to do it. I think there were other teams involved. I think, to me, DJ Moore was the one player. They wanted 2 number 1 extra. I said this the other day on the pod. Remember, I said if he would have had all those ones, he would have taken it. Well, that's true. He didn't have it. He got a 2. He didn't get the extra 1. But he got DJ Moore, which is really more of probably a better fit for him, for his team, especially around your guy Fields, to see what he can do.
Mm-hmm.
You have no more excuses. You're completely out of excuses. You're completely out of excuses. They give up a 2 for Claypool. They trade for DJ Moore. They got all these fucking draft picks. Like, your excuses are over with. Like, I don't want to hear you cry, well, it's not the right scheme. They don't really put him in the right. Like, I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it. It's over. It's over.
It's over. I've put up. There's no more excuses. My guy, he's got to produce in 2023.
Now here's where we're going now. Let's see. Produce. Justin Fields MVP odds. I could see you going to the window on that one too now, my man. I could see that with your jersey. One day you'll come into the circle, you'll bet that one, and you'll put your Tua jersey on, you'll bet that one. I could see this coming. I got cameras at I'm going to be out there, so I'm going to turn around and see your ass going up to that window.
So I think we've had way too much Justin Fields talk on the pod going back to the regular season, to where I missed the boat on this, man. Like, everybody's betting him. I have no Justin Fields bets. I don't have a single bet for this upcoming NFL season because we're sitting here in March. And Fields is like 25-1 to win MVP. Everyone's jumping the gun on this thing here. Yeah, if you're going to give me like 80-1, maybe I'd sniff around on that. But 25, that's way too short for a Chicago Bears team that, hell, they might not even – they're the long shot to win their own division. How can you win MVP if they're not going to win their division? So the Fields love, as much as he's my guy, when it comes to putting my money down on an MVP ticket, at 25-1, I'm not doing it for Justin Fields right now. But I agree with you. The excuses are now out of the window. He's got a big-time receiver in DJ Moore. They're going to surround him with some other pieces. I'm sure they're going to look towards the offensive line and free agency to try to shore some things up. Also, the draft. They could double up on that offensive line to protect him much better. But I think we're going to see that potential that I've been talking about. It's going to come to fruition in 2023. I'm confident in my guy, Michael. I'm confident. We don't need the excuses this year.
Well, we'll see. We'll do it.
But I do want to go back to the Bryce Young point, though, with Carolina that you're bringing up here, that you think that Young is the favorite to go number 1 in your eyes. Bryce Young is unlike any other quarterback that Frank Reich has coached. I know this has been the point that's been talked about, that Frank Reich has liked traditional big quarterbacks, Young being a physical outlier. You think that they're going to look past this, or is this maybe the owner, David Tepper, who reportedly likes Bryce Young, maybe putting his thumb on the scale, no pun intended?
Well, I think he is putting his thumb. I think David Tepper's running I think David Tepper's a huge influence in this. mean, David, and so it should kind of be this way, right? I've often said this, like the owner should be the driving force on what kind of team he wants to build, right? And I could see Frank Wright saying, "Look, I played the position, David. Like it's going to be hard for him to stay healthy." I could see that conversation, right? I could see that. However, that being said, I think to me, look, you can't, and I've knocked Bryce Young a ton. I mean, I've said many times, I didn't get the 5'10" memo that they're back in vogue. I get that. But when you watch him go back and watch the Georgia game in the championship. Like there's some incredible plays he makes there. Now, I think you got to design the offense specifically for him. I think he has got to be in shotgun more than ever under center, right? And I think you've got to have a lot, but he's so instinctive. And he's got such awareness for the game that he plays quick-minded. And I think the quick-mindedness reminds me of Drew Brees more when he was at Purdue. So I get that. And look, there's no way they're both the same. I'll say this. C.J. Stroud, I'm going to study this week. But I think ultimately, to me, what Young was able to accomplish and his instincts and his rhythm and all that and his accuracy, it's hard to duplicate.
So you've now taken 2 shots at the Boilermakers here. Now, our producer, Elliot, he's from that neck of the woods. His family is legacy
but he went to Missouri,
Purdue.
though. I'm not taking a shot. That's what I've always called Purdue. I mean, Purdue. I mean, I hope they win the NCAA. You probably have them in your bracket, don't you?
I don't. so I don't have. I think they go to the Sweet 16, but I mean, they could get tripped up. But that's neither here nor there. People don't want to hear our.
I mean, how
is
Texas A&M the 9th, 8th? How are they 8th? Like, I want to sit in that committee room one day. Like,
I don't get
what
it.
What more do they have to do to get like a fit? Like, seriously.
I mean, who knows? My guess is that it's a TV show. They wanted the potential Texas A&M second round matchup because that will, Lone Star State might catch on fire if we end up getting that one. But I don't get that either. It's like they finished second in the SEC tournament, which we all say is like the second best conference in America, but apparently that's only good for a 7 seed. But that's neither here nor there. So with Young potentially going to Carolina, and it's early, we're not saying that he's going to do this. I don't want to misconstrue anything that you're saying here. You just believe that he should be the favorite to go number 1 overall.
I think there's a conversation, and I think they like Levis too. I think they do. I think they like Levis too. Yep. I don't think this is Anthony Richardson involved. I don't. Okay. I think there are a lot of teams that do love Anthony Richardson, and I think that there might be some action. But I think to me, this is about, I think it's, if I had to rank it, I would go Young 60-40, Stroud, 30, and then I would go probably Levis 10%, 15, 20 maybe.
Okay. So Young, Stroud, Levis, and then Richardson kind of an afterthought, because I was reading Peter King's stuff last night, and he said that Frank Reich loves Richardson, but he doesn't see Richardson going number 1 overall. If everyone's connecting Frank Reich to, apparently Reich loves the entire draft class.
Yeah, well, he's Will Rogers. Of course he's going to love the entire draft. I mean, that's the fact. Like, that's what people in the media digest. It's like, I've been in the room. Like, there's nobody, you don't love everybody in the room. Like, there's always, like, again, there's 4 kind of scouts, right? There's the picker, the guy that picks on one thing. Okay, so if you've got a picker in the room, he's going to pick on Bryce Young's height. Okay. Yeah. If you've got a production guy in the room, you're going to say C.J. Stroud did this, his production's element. If you got a poor scout in the room, you're probably going to say that, Richardson isn't good enough. Right. And if you've got the projector, the guy that can project the talent moving forward, right, that scout is going to say, hey, I believe this guy's talent in a pro system doing these things. See, like the reason you in scouting, you've got to define. You got to know the plays and the players. So when you write a report, you got to be able to say, Bryce Young, if he's in this style of offense, okay, boom, 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 and write it out. Like, describe it. Like, don't say he's just a great player. Like, no, we got to figure out what offense is he going to run, because that's the key. Like, that's the complaint I have about Lamar. Nobody writes out what's the offense for. Lamar should be under center, shotgun, outside, inside zone, boots naked, all that stuff. Shotgun on 3rd down. That's Lamar. Lamar needs to be, we need to make Lamar the defense have to defend Lamar as a blocker. How do you do that? You run boots, because it's the only play in football the quarterback can block somebody. You pull him out because he's such a weapon.
You have to respect it. Yeah. That sounds like Lamar.
Same thing they did with Hurts. Give the Eagles credit. They said Jalen Hurts. Now, I don't think it was in anybody's reports because I didn't see it that way because I didn't see the six-back offense, but they figured out the six-back offense.
God, if Lamar somehow ended up with a Kyle Shanahan, I think that would be the dream situation or something like that. Like that would be a fun offense to watch, but I don't think that's what's going to happen. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know if the Niners are maybe interested in Lamar, but that I think would be a fun scenario in the Bay Area. Last thing on the draft, because we've talked a lot about Carolina and what they might do at number 1. I think the next pivot point is probably number 3 with the Cardinals. Monty Ossenfort, the new general manager, the new head coach, Jonathan Gannon. All reports and indications are that they're looking for somebody on the defensive side of the football, one of those blue chip defensive guys. Do you see Carolina, or rather Arizona, moving out of number 3 to one of these QB needy teams? Like, let's say one of these teams falls in love with the talent of an Anthony Richardson, whether it's Indianapolis moving up 1 spot, or maybe Seattle moves up a couple spots, or the Las Vegas Raiders go from 7 to 3. Would you guess that the Cardinals end up moving out of that pick number 3, or could they just fall in love with one of the top defenders and say, hey, we just want to take this guy here?
I think they would move. I don't think there's anybody that says, okay, I can't move from here. I don't think there's a Chase Young or there's a Bosa in that I know people think Will Anderson is, but that's not the case. I think they would move. Now, would you move up to get the quarterback? Or if you're John Snyder and you're sitting there, I might get the guy I want right here, right? Why do I have to move? Yeah. I mean, a lot of it's going to come down to what does the Houston Texans do? If the Texans sign Garoppolo, which they're in the Garoppolo market, right? If they sign Garoppolo, do they still draft one? Probably. I mean, if the Raiders sign Garoppolo, do they still draft one? Probably. You know, like to me, it's a little bit like Geno. Garoppolo and Geno are kind of similar, that you're going to sign them to a deal. Yep. You know, you're going to get a good player, whatever anybody thinks. I mean, Garoppolo's won a lot of games in his career. You're going to get a good player. You can run your offense. It's not going to be overly expensive. It's not going to be ridiculous. You're going to have him for 2 or 3 years, and you go from there.
Yeah, the whole double up thing that we've talked about here. I think that's how teams can address the most important position at quarterback there. So we assume Houston's going to take a quarterback. There's been rumblings about the Texans maybe going defense, but I think that they're probably going to go quarterback to try to get that QB of the future. Could see many as 3, maybe even 4 quarterbacks go at the top of that draft there, to where one of those teams like in Arizona or Seattle could be sitting and having one of these premier defenders fall to them. A lot of time between now and the draft, but it's going to be a lot of interesting discussion here. But I think the most interesting point that you brought up there is that Carolina could be zeroing in on a quarterback and not the one that the betting market thinks. That I do think is very, very fascinating. Thanks for watching the GM Shuffle with Michael Lombardi. And for more videos like this, make sure to subscribe to VSiN Live and the GM Shuffle podcast with Michael Lombardi, presented by DraftKings and VSiN, wherever you get your podcasts.